Spacefair. What the UFO? It's Caleb. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting the show. If you're on Patreon or YouTube and giving us $1 or $2 a month, that means a huge amount to us. Thank you very much. And by us, I mean just me. So it means the world to me. It means however many dollars a month. Right now, it's like $30 a month or something, but it's really important and I really appreciate it. And I could really use more help. So if you're watching and liking, please sign up at WTUFO's Patreon or YouTube's support system for WTUFO. Okay, let's do the show. This is a conversation, but it's just me today. So it's a conversation between me and you, an eager, interested listener, somebody who thinks about this a lot and who wonders what to do in this space. I'm going to cover 3 big chunks of things today as sort of a milestone of the show. It's not a particularly special date, but it's over a year. It's 70-something episodes. I've learned a lot since I started this. I learned to wear a suit, for example, but also learned a lot about the phenomenon. I learned about the sort of state of play of the conversation. Even though it's moving, changing, evolving a lot in really good ways, there's a lot to learn. And I know more of it now than I used to. So I have more informed opinions, and it's time to reset my priors about what's going on, how I can help specifically, and what we should all be doing. So those are the general 3 areas that I'm going to cover. 1, what the UFO is happening. 2, what is this show for? How is it helpful in any way? And 3, what should we do collectively about whatever is happening? And I think it makes sense to do in this order, but I also think that these things are going to sort of talk to each other. So as I walk through them, maybe we'll find little connections between various points along the rainbow path. But let's start with the big, fun, juicy one rather than saving it for later. What is happening? A year, 2 years into reading and learning a lot about this, for me, it seems at this point pretty obvious, or rather high likelihood, that there's some kind of non-human intelligence operating around Earth, and there are probably multiple kinds, like at least 4 or 5. In the longer tail, it seems likely from all the reports that have really weird details but don't crop up a million times that there's a lot of variety happening. So there may be like 4 or 5 kinds of visiting creatures or, cryptid type creatures who are the dominant species with whom we're interacting. And then there may be a really long tail. I may save for another conversation why I think the extraterrestrial hypothesis still is the most intuitive. I know people have a lot of different kinds of hypotheses, and I find a lot of them very interesting. For me, the easy place to go is creatures from other planets, and that's for a couple reasons. One, the diversity that we're seeing seems high enough that it would maybe be weird if these creatures were just from here. Although as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, there's an awful lot of diversity on planet Earth. Then there's spirit realm stuff, which I should probably have saved for later in this what is happening conversation. That's also semi-compelling. I would say it's almost certainly likely that something is going on in that regard. And those are basically the 3 main options, like something from Earth but predating humans, something from planes of reality that we can't perceive usually, or something from this reality but physically far away. Those are the main buckets, I think. I mean, unless you get into weirder options like AI has manifested something or our psychosocial consciousness has manifested something, I think those are lower probability. Maybe you wouldn't rule them out entirely. And that's because of what I was going to make number 3 of what is happening, which is weird physics. So yeah, we'll save that. Number 1, NHI. There are non-human intelligences operating around Earth. I can't believe it. That is one of those sentences that as I'm saying it, like 10 year ago me, it's like, what are you as a person? Where is this life going that you've created for yourself or stumbled into? NHI is operating around Earth. 1. 2, militaries know more about it than they're saying. And even saying militaries know more about it is oversimplifying, because many, many, many people in the militaries of the world don't know anything about this, or don't know much more than the civilian populace. But some parts of some militaries, like specifically probably the major 3 military powers on Earth right now, America, China, Russia, probably some of the Five Eyes. I think that includes UK, Canada, France. I think they're intelligence sharing service countries. Seems pretty likely that a place like Brazil might know something, maybe India. These are powerful nations as well. Saudi Arabia comes to mind. There might be sort of pockets of information about this around the world, but it's pretty obvious, I think, from the reporting, from the whistleblowing, from the leaking, that there are programs within our militaries that are studying this stuff really aggressively. And I personally think that the crash retrieval and reverse engineering narrative is almost certainly real. That feels very likely to be true to me for a whole bunch of different reasons. And maybe, again, this should be saved for a more bullet pointy episode where we talk about why specifically, but there are multiple credible reports of people seeing really strange objects, like within the context of engineering operations on planet Earth, like by humans. And then there are multiple reports of people explaining that programs to reverse engineer these craft exist. And then there's a really strong logical argument that militaries would have a strong incentive to deny that those programs exist, because they upend the natural inherited geopolitical order. Like, this is a really big deal. And this is also probably something that deserves its own mini episode. The nuclear deterrent system that all of us alive were basically born into, I guess almost all of us. There are people out there who predate the nuclear deterrent system. Obviously, there are people in their 90s and hundreds. But most of us on the planet inherited this system. We grew up in a time when the nuclear deterrence was already sort of a structure that militaries and governments around the planet were using to define borders and establish security protocols. And UAP completely changed that. They make it really, really hard, because it's extremely difficult to stop a nuclear missile already. But if you put a nuclear missile on a UAP, and it could be anywhere on the planet in a matter of minutes, I mean, that completely scrambles the architecture of our nuclear deterrence. And I know that sounds kind of like, I don't know, abstract or something, but that is a huge, huge deal geopolitically, militarily. That's like, nuclear deterrence is like a massive underpinning of the world order as it currently exists. So there is a very, very strong incentive for the organizations that are working on technology that could undermine that system not to reveal that they are doing that. Because if they did, they would tip off a set of dominoes that could fundamentally restructure global geopolitics. And that is something that we don't know the results of. We don't know what it would cause. We don't know what would happen at the end of that domino chain. And so that is a really good reason not to want to start tipping them over. There's also, in that area, a reasonable consideration to make that if you had a UAP, you might want to keep it like deep, deep in your pocket, just in case there were a horrible nuclear war scenario, because you could fly around that UAP and maybe stop some warheads. But you don't want other countries to know that you have that capability, because you don't want them to race to get that capability, which would then entail the end of your nuclear deterrent. So there's like a game theory operation here going on. And one of the reasons we may be getting more information is that it's possible that if the US has made some progress, China may have made some progress too. It's possible that Russia's made some progress. If we're starting to see multiple human-engineered UAP type things, we might be at the point where this nuclear deterrence order is coming to an end or is changing into whatever the new system is going to be. And that's scary, and it's going to require a lot of work and care. And mostly it's just like a huge psychosocial lift for all of us. Like that's a lot of work to enter that new world where we're going to have to somehow trust each other, not to blow each other up all the time. Like it's a scarier world, to be totally honest, at least in our current level of civilizational development. Okay, I rabbit holed that. Classic UAP. So one of what is happening is NHI are here on Earth. It's not just we're not alone in the universe. We're not alone on Earth. That's really important. People say the first thing a lot, and it's like, it's not exciting. I think everybody understands that we're not alone in the universe. It would be really weird if we were. It's much, much less well understood and bigger a deal that we are not alone on Earth, that there are other intelligent, technologically advanced species operating around this planet. Like, even saying that out loud sounds radical because it's freaking weird. Like, what the UFO? There's a reason for the dumb but pithy name of this show. That should be like radically destabilizing. And I think that's probably why many people don't think about it. We'll come back to how to help people think about it later. But the third big thing that's happening after NHI existing here on Earth and the militaries of the world on a very secret level being aware of that and trying to reverse engineer their physics is that these NHI and their technology and probably some of their biological abilities are showing us aspects of reality that we didn't understand before, and we still currently don't understand. So one of those ways is the nuts and boltsy way, where they're clearly developing some kinds of warp bubbles around their craft. They generate some kind of warp bubble that allows them to move through objects, through water, through air, as if it were nothing, basically, because they're warping space-time, theoretically. And that is amazing and wonderful and really cool. And it would be so, so great for us to learn how to do it. It would change an awful lot of human situations that we would like to improve. And I hope that in the next 100 years, we will lean heavily into that, because we obviously have an absolute ton to gain if we really start learning about it. More on that when we get to the science part. But on the other half, whatever the thing is that isn't nuts and bolts, the squishes and squooshes, there's a really widespread set of reporting, I guess. Set of reports. There's a lot of data now that suggests that there are some kind of psychic elements to the UAP phenomena and to many kinds of phenomena that we don't understand very well, that hint at larger parts of reality, larger aspects of the nature of reality than we previously understood to be real. And this is as radical a discovery or set of discoveries as discovering that we're not alone on the planet with regard to intelligent life. It's probably ultimately an even bigger deal, because if we find out that, say, the very simple concept of a soul is real, like a true physical fact about the nature of reality, that's amazing. And it changes a lot of what received science as it is understood in the academy for the past 100, 500, maybe even years has taught us. Like, you have to go back to like pre-Enlightenment religious order to get to an obvious understanding that souls are real. And like, there might be places like the afterlife. There might be different kinds of afterlife. There might be different parts of the afterlife. There might be different layers to the non-physical world. And this is all stuff that you start bumping into like 5 minutes after you start learning about UFOs. So if you're a person on this journey, which I think you almost certainly are, because why else would you be at this point in a video about it? You've probably read about psychics and about mediums and about people having really strange prophetic dreams. And you might have read about like sudden savant syndrome and which, you know, where somebody wakes up and like speaks a language they didn't speak before or has some skill that they never had, or people communicating across vast differences. Like, apparently this stuff is all real. A lot of it appears to be real. It certainly looks like the evidence for reincarnation is really good. And that's like extremely strange. And it, again, like should give us a what the UFO moment. Like it should really blow our minds. And I sometimes wonder, I guess, armchair moment for a sec, how much that is deeply understood, like at a normal, casual conversation in a bar kind of level, and how much it's like really deeply rejected because of the sort of academic official story. Because there is an official story about the nature of reality that rejects all of the spirit definitions that I just laid out, all of the spiritual claims that I just laid out, rather, all of the universal consciousness, like planes of reality, all that stuff. It just seems completely fake to the official story of science. So the question that I'm posing here is, do a majority of people think it's real and they just understand that the official story of science is incomplete? Or do a majority of people in the world think the official story of science is correct and probably that, we don't have souls and there aren't parallel worlds around us and surrounding and binding and penetrating us at all times? I guess, honestly, it's probably more like the situation in which more people believe it's real. That's probably true. So it may be just more likely that the academics are going to have a really hard time onboarding this. Like people who have been trained in material science traditions, they're going to have a really hard time accepting this. Anyway, the whole point here is that it's the third big thing that's going on. 1 is the NHI, 2 is military secrets, and 3 is we're learning new things about the nature of reality, both in physical transportation and energy production and in spiritual realms like telepathy and reincarnation and layers of reality. That's all bound up in the UFO phenomenon, which intersects with other phenomena that we've been tracking through history in various ways for thousands of years. So that's my big picture of what's going on. Now I want to do what we should do and what this show wants to be. And I guess since what we should do is bigger, I'll do what the show wants to be first, and then we'll close with the big picture, what we should all do. This show is for everything I can think of, but 3 big things. I want to normalize the conversation. I want to explore perspectives in this space, and I want to find action steps that we can and should be taking together. So unpicking this all apart and peeling for a minute, normalizing, this is a way to hold space together. This act that all of us do when we listen to shows like this, or we make them ourselves, because there are lots of shows like this. There are like several hundred shows that explore the unknown, the weird phenomena, the UAP topic specifically. And I think that's great. Like, I don't think it's a competition. I don't think any of us are going to like blow the case wide open, although some of these shows do amazing, like documentary reporting. Really, it's wonderful. I'm so grateful that they exist. I'm so grateful for leaders in the field like Knapp and Corbell, and Jesse Michaels is super cool, and Rogan's out there like slaying on this. Obviously, Richard Dolan is amazing, and Bryce Zabel's been beating the drum forever, and we've talked to a bunch of really cool people on here, like Victor Vigiani in Canada, and I don't know, Bertie Jaworski comes to mind, even though she doesn't have a show. A lot of people are spreading the word. A lot of people are out there making content about this. And I like all of them. I like Area 52. I like Tim Ventura's show. I love that UFO podcast. I love Cosmosis. Like, I love all the conversation in this space. Psicoactivo. Oh man, now I'm going to forget other ones. And that's enough. You don't need more, because there are hundreds. And all I'm saying is the project of all of these shows is in part just holding space for people to listen and nod along. Maybe you learn a thing or two here and there. You find out about somebody's perspective. But in addition to all of that, there's just a feeling of normalcy in engaging with other people who are taking this seriously. Oh, the Quirk Zone, the extraterrestrial reality. Love that guy. James Quirk is wonderful. there's like a healing quality to being in community, even if you're just listening, with people who also take this stuff seriously, because it can be pretty crazy making. And even I, like 2 years into taking it pretty seriously, I look around sometimes and go, and I'm like, this can't all be real, right? Like, is all of it fake? And I'm just really confused. So I need in those times to listen to somebody who's out there saying, no, it's real. Here's why. So I understand that I can provide that sometimes for other people in the same way that I look to shows like this and even my own show, if I'm being really narcissistic, to comfort me and to just like feel seen and feel normal and explore these ideas in a safe space. So then moving into that explore space, I like exploring perspectives. I like hearing from different points of view across the sort of intellectual spectrum here. I do tend to skew a little academic. I like the way academic people think, and I also like, frankly, that they have serious credibility within the world of careful thinking. I think that's cool, and I think it's admirable that they've worked so hard to attain those statuses. Stati, and I admire them, and I think it's really fun to talk with them as well. But I've also, as you've seen, if you've been watching, talk to some people who are not from that world, who have more direct personal experience, or maybe they're like engineers and they've been researching the science on their own, or maybe they're media figures and they're just like really curious. So I find it really interesting to explore the perspectives of all these different people. I love how widely those opinions range. Like the physicists are really interested in the nuts and bolts. The spiritualists are really interested in the nature of reality. Interestingly, the religion professors I've talked to don't tend to be as sort of like in the tank for the spirit stuff as you would maybe think they are. Like the people who have been hardest core interested in the spiritual aspects of reality haven't tended to be the professors of religion, in my experience, which is kind of interesting because there's a way to teach religion in which you're basically considering it as history and like literature. So not everybody in the religion space is all in on the spirit stuff. That's just a small observation there, but it's very fun in general to see the rainbow of perspectives and to remind yourself that some people have different views on the subject and people have like very different theories. Some people think like the spirit stuff is like really the whole shebang. Like shout out to fun philosopher Liam Breck for holding it down on the metaphysics angle and exploring that really thoroughly. And like when we talked, he basically said he thought UFOs were like the least interesting thing happening on the planet, and that all these other metaphysical phenomena are like way deeper and way more exciting. And so that's fascinating and super cool. I also really like Janet Whitlock's big picture views about the possibility of like soul agreements and like intentional life tracks. Fascinating. I mean, there's like an amazing world out there of psychic adjacent stuff. I clearly need a better word for that, but spiritual, I guess you would call it spiritual stuff. And then there are the hardcore physicists who are trying to get like a good sensor reading on this like metal craft flying through the freaking sky. And I think that's super fascinating, and we got to hold them all together. One area of worldviews that I have a hard time with, that I really enjoy encountering because it challenges me, there are a group of people who really don't want to try to guess what's going on or try to describe what's going on. And I really want to know what's going on. So I get very frustrated when people sort of pump those brakes and put their hands up and say, but wait, we may not even be able to understand the nature of what's happening. And I appreciate that perspective. I think it's really important to remember that our perception is limited and that there are maybe important parts of the puzzle that we just don't have access to yet. And, you know, we can postulate about what they might be, but the truth is we don't know. And we might not know in our lifetimes. We might not know for a really long time. Where I want to push those people always is I think it's still really important to try. So just throwing your hands up and saying, hey man, who knows? It could be anything. That's not good enough for me. I think we need good work toward good answers, and we can have it if we try. So put a pin in that for what should we do, and we'll come back around to that. Exploring perspectives, modeling good conversation is important to me in this space. I try to do it It's not always easy. There have been a couple conversations which some of you have rightly called me out on for being a little too juicy or loosey or goosey. I didn't challenge people sufficiently when they said like pretty strange sounding stuff. And I've definitely had some conversations where my eyes got a little wide and I frankly didn't know what to do because I want to be a kind host. I want to be like an understanding person. I want to be like a friendly interlocutor, but I also want to press people. And I'm getting a little bit better at that. But that's been a journey for me. So I'm still learning. And when I say modeling good conversation, I partly mean learning how to have that good conversation myself so that I can then model it for others. And this is the kind of thing that we can do all over the spectrum of ideological engagement. Like, I think it's really important for people to model respectful political conversations, for example. And it doesn't happen enough. We need more interactions with people who disagree with us agreeably. And we should demonstrate our abilities to do that in the world by engaging politely and respectfully and curiously and humbly with other people who have different views than our own. And so that's just as important in the UFO space. Arguably, the UFO space is an area where it's especially important because it's such a complicated, challenging information environment where we have so little real solid information. And there's so many possibilities, and so many of those possibilities are so weird. Okay, so that was normalizing, exploring perspectives, modeling good conversation, making connections that comes up naturally with exploring perspectives. You can say, oh, this person's really interested in the jinn, and this person was really interested in the jinn or the fairies, or I heard this about Bigfoot and this about the Greys and this about the mantids, or you start seeing themes like, okay, this comes up a lot, that there are 4 or 5 kind of main types of creature that we're seeing. So that's probably a reliable idea. And it's especially exciting when you hear something over here that then fits with something over here and you'd never heard those things before. So every now and then I'll email guests and say, hey, I think you should meet this other person behind the scenes because you clearly have something in common. Like I think Sarah Gam and John Ramirez should talk to each other. And I mentioned that to them because I think they both understand a little bit more about the situation than we do from the perspective of like military and intelligence gathering. So like signals intelligence, they may have even seen some similar stuff together. And I hope they've had conversations about that. I hope there are conversations like that happening all throughout this conversational web of the subject. And I hope you're having them too. Making connections, synthesizing worldviews is kind of a thing that follows on from making connections. Like if this is true and this is true, then maybe these things are all true. Like if reincarnation is real, and souls are therefore real, then maybe this idea of life contracts is possible, or life agreements where you like choose your life from the point of view of a spirit realm, and maybe souls can move through time and space in such a way as to allow them to be, quote, from different places. Like a soul could have had a recent history in Alpha Centauri, or it could have been born across the universe somewhere and it's made its way through Earth right now. Like we don't know how deep the reincarnation well goes, I guess is what I'm saying there. Like it's possible that souls go back millions of years, or it's possible that they like emerged somewhere. If souls are real, we don't have anywhere close to a biology of them. And we need that. That's like extremely exciting science that is out there to do if we think that they're real, which it seems like they well could be. So let's get cracking, and I'll return to science in a minute. I guess to that point, action steps is the last big thing I want to do. I want to help normalize the conversation with this show. I want to help explore perspectives, and I want to help find action steps. One quick thing I should say parenthetically that I initially thought I wanted to do with the show, and I'm sort of not sure anymore. And I quickly decided that it wasn't the point of the show, but sometimes I think it should be every now and then the point of the show is to like introduce people to the subject. I find it really hard to keep the posture of introducing people to the subject in every episode because it's just too much work to walk everybody into the whole topic every time. You've probably had this experience if you were introducing a friend to the concept. You have to explain like 50 things in a row. And if they let you talk, then you suddenly way over talk. And then like 11 minutes go by and you're like, and at Roswell and souls. And they're like, okay, I guess. Mantids, containers, nuts and bolts. Anyway, it can be too much. And I want to help wake people up. I do think that's like action step number one of what should we do. So pivoting toward that from the end of this show's list of what it wants to be, normalize, explore perspectives, and find action steps. In talking to different people about the situation, in learning about various perspectives, and in hearing about the various projects on the field, a couple things have come up for me as obvious steps that we should take. And so this is going to be a natural pivot now into what should we do together. Number one is wake people up. Number two is fund more science. And number three is engage publicly with NHI. So waking people up, this is friends and family and elected representatives. If you live in a democracy, your elected representative should know that you care about UAP. Here's what I did. I found my congressperson's email site and I found my senator's email site. If you live in America, you have a congressional representative and you have a senator. Those two people are probably your best bet for getting more information about this. You also probably have a state representative and state senators, depending on your state's constitution or legally binding agreement. So you could consider writing them, and you could consider writing your governor's office. I haven't tried those things. Might be worth a shot, actually, because you might have an easier time getting to some of those people. Certainly, your national representatives should know that you think about this stuff. So you should call or email or physically write or attend an event for your elected representatives, specifically your congress member and your senator. And you should ask them, what is your position on UAP? Do you support government disclosure of military secrets around UAP, like the UAP Disclosure Act, and you can give them material about that? And do you support what I'm going to talk about next, which is funding more science for UAP? There are not a ton of people who can increase the science funding for UAP, and this is an extremely important action step, which is why I'm going to get to it next. But I don't want to leave out the very obvious first, most important action step we can all take. We can wake people up about this. I'm starting to think my live and let live policy around this with my friends has maybe not been the most helpful way for me to engage with the subject on them. I think I need to push them a little more. I'm still working out how to do this. I'm sure you are doing that too. Maybe we can have a conversation about it in the comments. What are the best ways to approach friends to help them realize what's going on? There are certainly books and podcasts you can send them. There are links. And when we talk specifically about Age of Disclosure, I'll recommend some specific links that you can send people. But like quickly off the cuff, you should send them Jake Tapper talking to Dan Farah. You should send them Brett Baer talking to Dan Farah. And you should send them Bill Maher talking to Dan Farah. I also liked Brett Baer talking to David Grush recently. And the News Nation stuff is great. I think it's very fun. It's a little harder to sell people on. If you're talking to like a skeptic normie, they're much more likely to listen to somebody from either CNN or Fox. There was also a good, I think, CBS interview with Farah recently. Really, really admire him for making those rounds. But all of those little 6 or 7 minute videos, those are all tools for your arsenal now, for you to email your friends and your family and say, hey, have you checked this out? What do you think about this? Or like, looks like Jake Tapper gets it. Are you there yet? Do you understand what's going on? And like, I would really like to have a conversation with you. And, we should probably talk to a psychologist about this at some point, but I think there are ways to be more aggressive about this conversation that are not off-putting. Like, for example, you can try to bring your friends in by asking for their help instead of trying to instruct them and like load them up with your viewpoints on this fraught, challenging topic. You can ask them for help, pulling them in by saying like, hey, as far as I can tell, all this stuff is real. Like, what do you think we should be doing about it? is maybe a good question, or like, or if this stuff turns out to be real, how is that going to make you feel? Like, are you cool with the likely secrets around this in the military intelligence space, or how do you think we should respond as a people? Like, what should we do? Does maybe like engaging people in the project of those conversations might be a good way to bring them into it and help them realize that it's real without just like asking them, hey, are you there yet? Do you understand that it's real? And then like overloading them with the content. But I do think it's probably time for us to get a little more energized about engaging with people and making sure that they understand that this is real. Another way I do this is sometimes I like propose op-eds to small journalist operations. Nobody has said yes so far, but I've proposed this probably like 6 or 7 times. I don't know, maybe 10 plus now. One of these days, someone will take me up about it, and I will let you all know when that happens. But again, circling back one more time, you really need to call your representatives and to email them, and they will blow you off the first like 2 or maybe 3 times, or maybe more times. Like the way this worked with my representative is I said, hey, what's Seth's opinion on UAP? I'd really like him to support the UAP Disclosure Act. Is he going to do that? And they said, we'll get this to someone in science technology. And I said, okay, thank you. But what is Seth's position? Does he have a position? And they came back and said, okay, we'll get this to somebody in our government policy section. And I said, okay, but what does he think? Are you telling me that he doesn't know about this? Are you telling me that he's unaware of what's going on? What does the congressman think about this? Give me a position. I want a position. I'm a voter. I care. I want you to tell me what your position is because you work for me. You are representing me in government. So you should be pushy about that. And if you haven't done this already, you really should. This is like one of the most powerful steps that you can take. Convincing your friend Greg would be great too, but convincing your representative to take this seriously, ultimately probably going to be more valuable in moving the ball down the field toward military disclosures and scientific funding. So let's move into that. The next big thing we all have to do, and we are getting toward the end here now, so we're winding toward the biggest one. But the second to the biggest one is we need to fund science about UAP way, way, way more than we do. It's currently not nearly enough. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars researching all sorts of cool science. We spend literal billions of dollars researching like science in general, much of which is like medical, and you would obviously want that to happen. And then some of it's like technological, like we're developing AI and like building roads and stuff, inventing cures for cancer. We hope, you're developing new rockets. That's great. I've looked up the numbers from time to time about what we've spent on superconducting super colliders, and I believe that's in the billions of dollars. We've spent like not $10 million researching UAP. I don't know if anybody's done like a full deep data dive on this, and last time we spoke to him, Kevin Knuth was working on something like it. So maybe if anybody knows, that guy knows where to get some tang around here. But I currently don't think that it's more than $10 million. That would be my off the cuff guess. It's like maybe approaching 10 million, but probably not more than that. I think the Galileo project has a couple $1 million. I think the Archives of the Impossible must have a couple $1 million. I didn't ask them about that, or I haven't yet, but I'd be curious. I don't think SCU has $1 million. I don't think SUAPS has $1 million. They need it. Like, it would be great if they did. I don't know how much crypto money Skywatcher has. I hope it's $1 million. But these places need like tens of millions of dollars to do really good science on this. We need sensors everywhere. We need field studies. Field studies are expensive. We need like deep data dives. We need people working on this year after year. And the critical thing that we really need is grant money so that a scientist who is not currently researching this can apply for money to go research this. What Matthew Shadagas told us was he would love to drop everything and go work on this for even like a few tens of thousands of dollars. Like, it doesn't have to be fliffy, splashy, tons of money. Just like what he needs is a source of that money. He needs a grant line that he can apply to at the National Science Foundation in America. I'm sure there are equivalents in other science-inclined democracies around the world, or even semi-autocracies like China. There are probably places researching this in China, and I know almost nothing about them. All I know is that they have a reverse engineering program, we think, or at the very least, they have a UAP research program in their military. Almost certainly, they're reverse engineering UAP. So there are specific things that we can do in this space. And so I want to put you on the hook, since you're still listening for some reason, God bless you, to think a little more specifically about this science issue. Especially if you're a scientist, then you will know more about the National Science Foundation than I do, or anybody else who's not a scientist. So you might have some ideas about how you could encourage them to research this. You might have science friends who you could talk to about this. Those people are important in developing the conversation. Likewise, if you're wealthy, you might have a disproportionate role to play. Another thing that might matter a lot is if your representative is on a committee in Congress or the Senate that oversees science funding, and I think it's only 2 committees that do that, they could have an outsized impact, because you could ask them specifically, can you please support an earmark that says we want 1% of the science budget to go to UAP research? That would be like $100 million a year. That would be enough to make serious progress. With $100 million a year, we can probably prove that UAP are real things, like physical flying objects, which we already know from military disclosures to the extent we've had them. Like, reports to Congress have established that as a real fact. But scientists could establish that these things are like non-terrestrial phenomena. Then they could start analyzing their motion patterns, and they could start developing scientific theories around these like warp bubbles that we think they're using to get around, like they're warping space and time so they can move extremely fast and maybe affect the physical dimensions inside themselves. We could learn an absolute ton about that, but we do have to try. And it's actually really hard. So talking to scientists about this a couple of times, I've asked, like, what's going on with the funding? And they're like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's so hard. Like, guys, you have to work on that. People have to work on that. And if you want to work on it, you have to connect to the first part, which is convincing people that this is a real thing. Like, you have to spread the word that it's real so that you can raise awareness, so you can get more funding to find out what the hell is going on. Okay, last big thing, engaging publicly with NHI. If non-human intelligence is real and it's operating on Earth, and there are multiple kinds, and they're technologically advanced, then it logically follows that sooner or later, we're going to interact with them publicly, politically, probably militarily, maybe even socially and culturally. That would be great. The rumors in the space suggest strongly that some kinds of contact have already happened behind closed doors, which I think we could probably agree sucks on some level. It's very cool that it's happened, but it's not cool that if it is the case that secret agents of the United States military or the Chinese or Russian military or any militaries on the planet met advanced beings who are not human but who are technological, whether they're from another planet or another part of reality that we don't usually access, it is a huge violation of trust that they didn't report that fact to the rest of us. And that is, if it is true, that is very weird. Like, we should be upset about it, and we should be a little uneasy about it, I think, because it's like not intuitive that that's how things should go, I think. And if you met an alien this week, I think you'd probably tell people about it. I would encourage you to tell people about it without guessing what might go on in your head. So to that point, I think there are three things, I love these threes, obviously, that we can do about engaging publicly with NHI. One is we can just try to do it ourselves. We can do DIY, NHI, hi kind of setups. I've been sort of picking through ideas about this with guests every now and then as a little bit of fun. I'm sure you've heard it if you watch the show. I've been kind of tinkering with making a site around this and like an org if I have time. But the loose idea is we should do public events in which we attempt to engage in communication with these advanced beings. Public is really important. If you go on a camping trip far, far away and then you record orbs in the sky, I'm sorry, but it's just not going to move the needle scientifically. Like we need, it's cool and it could be really fun to do. I'm not saying don't do it necessarily, but I'm saying if you want to help like adjust public perception on the subject, you need to do this in a place where people could notice. So if you're going to go do CE5 and you have a regular meetup group, maybe have it in a park, have it in an urban park, big city park nearby where a lot of people could take photos and video of anything that might show up. Then you might want to consider, if you got lucky, what would you do? Like, would you bring a basket of fruit? Would you have like a nice blanket laid out? I think some elements that have floated up for me are this public idea. I think that's from James Quirk, actually. Really good call. Michael Glosson, great PhD dude we spoke to about a year ago, had a cool idea about like a non-verbal kind of exchange. Like, don't try to say anything. Maybe just bring them some nice stuff. Maybe it's food. Maybe it's garments. I don't know. Maybe you do a little dance for them or you play some music. And then one other element that comes to mind is you probably need to have some kind of like rhythmic setup here. So you're not going to like put all your eggs in the one basket of we're going to do this once. And if nothing happens, then the whole thing's not real or, oh, well, we tried. I think it's probably these need to live on more of like a recurring basis. Maybe like monthly seems doable. Weekly might be a bit much, but like if we could get maybe a movement going around like Facebook groups around the world of people who do monthly meetups in a park, a city park, and attempt to engage in communication. Like they do some CE5 stuff and they try to record video and they try to like communicate in benevolent, peaceful, fun ways. I don't know. I think that could be cool. I think it could potentially move the needle. If something real happened, like if we had like an aerial school incident where like something landed and creatures came out and we got that on film and there were a lot of people there who saw it, that might actually move the needle and it might demonstrate that it was possible. So other people might try it. So this might be a little kind of chain reaction thing that we should think about sort of setting out to do ourselves. Cause that is a thing that we can do without the government giving us permission to tell us more stuff or the money holders giving dollars to the scientists. Like you could just go out to the park, do some CE5, set up a camera and record anybody who comes by and maybe bring them something nice in case you get to talk. Then on a broader social level, we're going to start to need some legal agreements around this. Like if this is real and it seems like it's real, then we need some sort of social collective action around it. Michael Bolander is our favorite dude that we've talked to about this because he's an international criminal lawyer and criminal law professor, I believe, at Durham University in the UK. Fantastic thinker on the subject. And he's moving really actively toward getting us to try and think about like, what does this look like from a collective response kind of avenue? Like, what are our legal agreements going to be? What sort of treaties do we need to write up at the United Nations? And that is where this is all going. So the last thing is the logical endpoint, or I don't know, a significant point along the road to infinity of our interaction with NHI is legal, formally binding treaties of political relationship with these entities, with whoever they are. Maybe there are like 4 different political groups, just like there are 4 different biological creature types. I don't know. It could be 4 or 5. I'm fuzzy on the exact biological details. I don't have them. We all need them. That's why we need to do more science. But anyway, it could be the case that there are multiple political groups. It could be the case that they're part of some bigger political group. It could be the case that some of them are like not getting along with each other and that we're a bit of a battleground for them to fight. And that would not be great, but we need to know that stuff. And so that is longer away. That's farther away. It's like that will be the result of us understanding that this is real and learning more about it scientifically. But I think it's worthwhile to just like keep it somewhere in the sides of our heads when we're trying to get people to pay attention, that we want to ultimately get to a point of some kind of political and like military and then eventually cultural relationship to these beings that is public and formal. And that might include rules like, please don't take us from our houses in the middle of the night. Or if you do, then XYZ might happen. You know, I don't think we should assume, and this is Bollander's point, we shouldn't assume that we're helpless in this situation, even though they do clearly have better tech than us. We've been working on it. We've been trying to scrap together what we can do to start to compete. We've got AI coming up. That might be really helpful. If we open this thing wide up and we get a lot more scientific engagement, we might be able to make a lot of progress. The chances that the 2125's technologies are going to look like the 2025's technologies are like zero, effectively. In 100 years, we're going to be way more advanced than we are now, obviously, and we're going to be even more advanced than 2025 was relative to 1925. Like, this is going to be a very rapid development period for the human species. And I think UAP are bound to be a part of that because it appears that they're here and it appears that they have advanced technology. And that means we're going to learn a lot from them if we try, and we're going to end up in some kind of formal relationship with them because we are currently in an informal one and it's not working out so great. So I think we can make a lot of improvements there. All right, zooming back out, we'll just quick click recap what's going on. Some kind of NHI is operating around Earth. Some parts of our militaries know more about this than the general public. These things are teaching us new things about the nature of reality, from physics to the spiritual world. What is this show for? It's here to normalize the conversation, explore different perspectives, make connections between those perspectives, synthesize worldviews, and in so doing, find action steps that we can all take together. And what are some of those action steps? 1, wake people up, get your friends and family, and especially your elected representatives, to understand that this is a serious, real, actual topic with real implications for their real lives that they should care about. Fund more science so we can get more eggheads cracking more eggs open and making alien omelets. But then 3, engage publicly with NHI and make rules about whether we can make alien omelets. It was a bit of a shaggy landing, but it was a long, rambly walk. And at least it had some structure. So I'm open to your feedback. This has been a really cool couple years of my life so far, and I'm excited to keep doing it. I really do enjoy when you give me feedback and comment on stuff. So thank you so much to the people who have been watching consistently and commenting consistently. It means so much to me. I love talking with you, and I think this is a fascinating time to be alive. I think there's a lot of hope in this moment, even though it's really scary. There's a lot of opportunity, and it's really frustrating a lot of the time, but there's a real excitement here too. There are things that we can learn, and they could make the world a much better place. But as we move in that direction, we have a responsibility to take what we've learned seriously, like follow the logical implications of the facts that we have encountered and have been willing to attempt to understand. Like let that move you in a direction. Let your thinking take you to some actions and move the world, because that's how we change it, by all working together. And along the way, we should be respectful to each other and try, whenever possible, to warm things up on a psychosocial level. I feel warmer than I did an hour ago. I can't believe I've been talking for so long, and I'm really impressed and grateful for the 7 of you who made it all the way to the end. So thank you super duper much. Let me know what you thought about this episode in some YouTube comments, and please support the show if you can. And another thing you could do is check out the Spacefair shop on Etsy, or I guess spacefair.co. No, don't go to that one yet. It's still not good. Maybe someday. All right, support us on Patreon. Keep watching the skies, and have a lovely day. Thank you for listening. And that's the show. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying it, please like and subscribe and share this with people who you think might like it. You could also directly support us at patreon.com/WTUFO for $1 a month. We do some chatting in there, and you can propose questions for future episodes. You could also check out spacefair.etsy.com. That's our company's main merch site where you could support us commercially and pick up some cool gear. Thank you again for listening. Hope you have a lovely day.